welcome to another edition of Friday Focus. Following a very close loss, 34-30 to then number 4 TCU Horned Frogs, the Kansas Jayhawks are done with their home season, but they still got 2 games left, which means we got probably 2 shows left. Maybe this may be our last show, so let's try to make it a good one. Once again, I am joined with Dan Harmsen and Stella Liang, Kansas football beat writers, and I'm Shane Jackson. Before we discuss OU at all, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about that TCU game. Dan, you and I discussed after the game in the press conference before Clint Bowen got there, there really is no such thing as moral victory. I've never believed that. But how important was that near loss to TCU on Saturday?
Well, Clint Bowen's been telling the media, and he's also been telling the players that you've been recruited to the Big 12 and you belong here. And after the game, I mean, they were 28-point underdogs, but they come in, they lose by 4. I mean, they played well throughout the whole game. And TCU players after the game are coming up to the Kansas players and saying, hey, don't listen to what anybody's saying, you guys belong here. So I think the game definitely validated the fact that Bowen's got this team going in the right direction. And is it going to be enough for him to be the head coach? I don't know, but it'll be interesting topic of discussion coming up.
Good segue there. Let's go ahead and talk about Clint Bowen maybe getting this job, because he certainly does not want to talk about it. But we're going to, as media, do enough job talking about it. Stella, in your opinion, was Saturday's performance enough for him to ensure that he is head coach next year? Or was it before that you thought that?
Well, I personally have been back and forth since he got the job, but the last 2 weeks have kind of convinced me that he should be given the head coaching job. You know, everyone says that he's not an offense guy, but the offense is flourishing under him, and that's because his whole mentality is affecting the whole team positively. And another thing is that, you know, he has the support of, you know, the Kansas fan base behind him now, and I think that if he doesn't get the job, there are going to be some angry Kansas fans.
I thought the biggest concern for me of why I didn't want him to get the job is because I thought his lack of knowledge on the offensive end. And then when he promoted Eric, he saw this offense has really turned around. And that, in my opinion, is enough to give Clint Bowen the job, because he does so many other things really well. He doesn't really necessarily have to run the offense. If he's got a guy that can do it, like he does with Eric, then I believe in Clint Bowen. Let's go ahead and talk about the Kansas Jayhawks. Jimmy Mundine had 127 yards for a career high. Now is a semifinalist for the Mackey Award for the best tight end in college football. What's his shot, Stella, at this award?
I think, Shane, that he definitely has a good chance, but it's going to be hard. You know, of the 8 tight ends on the list, Mundine is second to only John Seifrin of Massachusetts in receiving yards. And he is tied for first in receptions with 40. The only thing about Mundine is that, you know, he's a huge part of the KU offense, and that can either work in his favor or against him. You know, tight ends like Mundine and E.J. Bibbs of Iowa State, they're like a focal point, but on better teams like Ole Miss and Florida State, their tight ends are also on the list, but they're getting more recognition because of their names, and they're also a big part of the offense, but they're not the only part of the offense. So I think that works both in Mundine's favor and against him.
Another thing is I thought Mundine kind of had a slower start, and then when Cummings took charge, it really looked like he was one of the focal options of this offense. Another receiver who had a great outing on Saturday was Nigel King with 134 yards. Dan, let's talk about it. Nigel King now with back-to-back 100-yard performances for the first time for a Kansas receiver since 2009 with Desmond Briscoe. How important has been Nigel King to this receiver corps?
I see it as a case of untapped potential. He led Maryland last year with 4 touchdown receptions, so he's always had the ability. He's 6'3", 210, just a huge guy. And it seems like these last couple of weeks he's had some really favorable matchups against some smaller defensive backs. So, you know, Michael Cummings, there's this trust factor that's starting to build between Cummings and Mundine, obviously, but also with King, just throwing the ball up in his general vicinity, and he feels like he's going to go up and get it. And I got to talk to King a little bit, and he said, you know, anytime Cummings throws the ball up, that's my ball or that's nobody's ball. And so, you know, if he doesn't think that he can make a play on it, he's going to go and turn into a defender and knock the ball down. So I think Cummings feels he has much confidence in both Mundine and King, and I think it works both ways.
Yeah, I thought that was really the crucial part. Is TCU had Kevin White, I believe, at the corner matching up with him, and he was 5'10", and Nigel King is 6'3". In my opinion, I was setting up there in the press box, you have to throw it to him almost every single time. Either him or Mundine was supposed to catch it, I thought, on every single play. Let's talk about this offense now with back-to-back 30-plus point performances on the offensive end. Both of you, this is a question for both of you, what has been the biggest key for this offense turnaround?
I think I can take the cop-out answer here and, you know, take Cummings at quarterback, because that really has been the difference. And the offense has really started to move with him, and it's kind of opened up the passing game and the rushing game because of his threat to throw long and his threat to make plays on every down.
It's always a question in football of chicken or egg. Does the quarterback make the wide receiver? Does the wide receiver make the quarterback? And I think Kansas this year has shown more towards the quarterback changing things for the offense than the wide receivers, because the wide receivers haven't changed, but you insert Cummings and things are going a lot better. Quote from Leonardo da Vinci: "Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication." Keesaw, when he came over, he went into Cummings, or he brought Cummings into his office and was like, "Hey, highlight the plays that you feel comfortable with." Obviously, Cummings highlighted every single one of them, but just finding those comfortable plays. You see Baylor, they run just a select few plays, but they run them to perfection, and it works. And so I think simplifying the offense. Weiss's offense was the NFL style, where you don't have kids going to class. I mean, that's their profession. They're doing what they're doing all the time. And I thought that it was a little complicated. So simplifying things, and obviously the offensive line, Bowen said they played really well last week in terms of providing some protection for Michael.
Let's go ahead and begin to start talking about this week's opponent. As much as we want to still continue to talk about Saturday's awesome game, let's go ahead and talk about against the Oklahoma Sooners now this week. A very young team now with a freshman running back who's really leading the way, but also a freshman quarterback because Trevor Knight is out once again. Talk about this, Dan, just talk about this inexperience on this, especially on the offensive end. Is this a chance for Kansas to really catch this team on the ropes?
Yeah, it's definitely, things have definitely changed from preseason expectations, because if you guys remember last year when Trevor Knight took on Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl, he looked unstoppable. I mean, that was that Alabama defense that everyone's always amazed by, and he held his own. But he gets this neck injury, and now they're bringing in a freshman, Cody Thomas, and he threw 3 picks last week. He's more of a pro-style quarterback, but he showed some ability to run, so Kansas is going to have to keep their eyes on him. And then Samaj P. Ryan, you're going to talk about him later, Stella, but he ran for 213 yards last week. He's up, being mentioned with Adrian Peterson as one of the best freshman running backs that OU's had. He's going to be a tough one to bring down, so I think he's going to have to rally to the football this week.
Well, Stella, Dan likes stealing your thunder. Let's go ahead and talk about P. Ryan, or however you say his name. Clint Bowen even messed up his name in the press conference. Let's go ahead and talk about your player, the running back for Oklahoma.
Well, running back, as you mentioned, Dan, he is a freshman, but he does not play like it. He is just confident, and just 3 days ago he was named the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week, and it's already his second time, I think. He rushes for over 100 yards per game. He's had 2 200-yard games, and he's, like I said, he's just a freshman. And so, even with the quarterback change, the KU defense really has to be able to stop him for them to have a chance on the road.
All right, time to put you guys on the spot. Give me your 3 keys to the game and your ultimate score prediction.
First thing, I think Kansas defense needs to make things stressful for Cody Thomas. He's a freshman. The game might be a little fast for him right now. Speed it up. Make it even faster, because I think P. Ryan, you want to load the box against him because he's a big guy and he's going to be tough to bring down. Number 2, offensive line. They need another TCU effort, I think, because I really like the matchup that the wide receivers have against OU's secondary. I mean, you're talking about the height that we mentioned earlier. This is an inexperienced Oklahoma secondary that ranks 114th or so in pass defense. So I think Kansas has got that edge, but they need to protect Cummings and get him that opportunity so he can make those plays. And then lastly, special teams. You can make the argument that KU is special teams just 2 games away from having 5 wins. I mean, OSU, we go back to Tyreek Hill returning it, and then this past week, Ecclesmore, I think was his name, he returns that punt. So you're talking about, you clean up the special teams facet. They're going to be going up against Alex Ross, who had 3. He's looking for his 3rd kickoff return for a touchdown. If he sees a clear, he's gone. So KU needs to clean that up, and I think they might have a shot. I've got OU winning, though, 42-27. OU they have 47 consecutive wins when leading at halftime, so KU's probably going to have to get out early in this one, but I don't see that being the case. Trouble is, next week, K-State is 2nd in the nation with 45 straight wins when leading at halftime, so it's going to be tough, but I'm looking for continued improvement the rest of the way.
Like Dan, I have, one of the biggest keys is to get after the quarterback. He's a freshman. He doesn't have that much experience, and he's not Trevor Knight. So they need to take that disadvantage to Oklahoma and make it an advantage. And also, we mentioned the running game. They need to stop that running game. Don't let him get into the secondary. He can run a lot. And then also being on the road, it's important for KU to not get behind early. We saw a couple weeks ago when they went to Baylor, it just kind of snowballed. And I think KU needs to, be in the game for 4 quarters and to not let Oklahoma, just run all over them. I also have Oklahoma winning this. It's KU on the road. Oklahoma is good at home, good against KU. I have them winning 42-24.
I think we're all on the same page again. My first key is definitely get after the quarterback. This is an athletic quarterback. Trevor Knight also was a very athletic quarterback, but I think him being a freshman, he can get, you can pressure him a lot and get in his head. And I think KU has the ability to do that with that front 7. I also think that you have to use the passing game because that's really been the key. It's really a change of things. At the beginning of the year, we thought the running game was going to be the strong suit, and now with Cummings in there, King becoming more of an option, and Mundine obviously at the tight end, this is really a pass-happy offense, and I think you can really take advantage of this Oklahoma secondary. And I think you have to match the intensity that you did last weekend. It's going to be hard since you're on the road, and like we talked about, that Ja'Cory Shepherd pick 6 that got called back on the road, your spirit is just completely evaporated. But at home, that's when you really step it up, and that you got to stop on the very next play. I think you have to match that intensity because if you can match Oklahoma's intensity, then I think you really have a good shot. I do think Oklahoma's going to win, though. I think it's going to be 35-21. I do like Kansas' chances to make it close. That's going to do it for another edition of the Friday Focus. For Dan Harmson, Stella Yang, and Shane Jackson, thank you for watching. Enjoy your weekend, and Rock Chalk.